Space, the final frontier. This is the Phoibos Voyager. Its mission, to boldly go where no NH-35 powered microbrand watch has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I do hope the hardcore Trekkies can forgive me for mixing my metaphors just a little bit in the intro there, but how often does the opportunity come along to review a watch that shares its name with a series of Star Trek? Not all that often. How could I resist? Let's not forget, resistance is futile. Anyway, on with the watch, the Phoibos Voyager. Now, Phoibos started making watches about 6 months before I started making videos about watches, and I have reviewed, I think, all bar one of their pieces that they have released since then. To be clear before we go on, just one more little glorious Star Trek reference for you there. This one was sent to me for free by the company. I don't have to send it back. In addition, I'm a Phoibos affiliate. You'll find a link and a 10% discount code in the description of the video. 10% off for you and a small commission payment for me if you choose to use the code. But I try not just to puff these watches up, and indeed the last one that I reviewed, the Phoibos Proteus, I gave it a bit of a hard time. It wasn't a bad watch as such, but I just didn't see where it fitted into the Phoibos line of watches. After 4 years, I think that it's important that a micro brand should have begun to have developed an identifiable character of its own. You can look at it without the brand logo on the dial and say, oh yeah, that's a Phoibos, that's a whatever. And I feel that Phoibos have got a bit of a scattergun approach. Some of the watches like the Sentinel and the Great Wall haven't really been canon, if you see what I mean. I think this Phoibos Voyager, though, if not a welcome return to form, is certainly a welcome return to canon. It's quite glitzy, it's quite glamorous, it's quite shiny in places. There will be moans, there will be niggles. There will also be a lot of macro shots because it is a really interesting dial. I've looked at one watch before with a similar dial. You get 10 bonus points if you can remember it before I tell you what it is. Let's flip the camera and get on with it. Okay, so it's the old school Phoibos packaging. One might say it looked like a Borg cube. Alright Jody, enough of the Star Trek today already. I think you need to spend upwards of $350 to get the new fancy travel pouchy. It's a box, it's going to go in a cupboard. Anyway, what have we got? 2-year warranty card, 30-day return to sender, instruction manual that I have no intention of reading, and the watch. I think this is one of the most striking watches that I have looked at in a while, certainly the most striking Phoibos that I've ever reviewed. Relief bezel with high polished numerals, you've got high polish to those, arrowhead diamond shaped indices, high polish on the hands, and a very pronounced sunburst effect from that beautiful organic dial. I'm not sure that my studio lights are going to do it justice. I will be popping in quite a bit of macro and quite a bit of outdoor footage as well over the course of this review, because it really does take on quite a different character in natural light as well. Now, if it looks familiar, perhaps you watched my review of the Phoibos Sea Nymph at the beginning of last year. That was a 36mm watch that they released ostensibly as a ladies' watch. A lot of guys were like, hey, I would wear that in a bigger size, and I think that's what Phoibos have done with this Voyager. They've taken some styling cues from the Sea Nymph, but pumped up the size to a chunky 40mm. So 40mm in diameter, 14.5mm thick, 46mm lug to lug. We've got 20mm lug width. Now, protruding mid-link of the end link kind of expands that to about 50. Sized up for me, I took one link out. I could probably do with taking another one out, to be honest, if I was going to be wearing this one long term. This one comes in at 170 grams. Now, we're not in Helm Komodo territory here. That was 210, I think, plus, but definitely chunky for a 40. 20 grams beyond the kind of average 150 Gs on this. So 316L stainless steel case, crown, bezel, full stainless steel bracelet, solid links, solid end links, and a proper machine clasp. Slightly unusual, this one. Solid all the way through. I haven't seen one like that before. A few micro adjust there, chamfered edge, 2-button, and a couple of scratches from my use of this watch over the last couple of weeks. Double dome sapphire crystal, only 3 layers of anti-reflective undercoating. Maybe it could have done with a couple more. I'll show you that outside and you can make up your own minds in a minute or two.
Simple case finish, quite a slab-sided case this one today. High polish on the side, high polish on the crown guards. We've got that signature Phoibos King Octopus on the crown there. Nice of them to sign that. One of 4 King Ockies that make it onto this watch in various locations. Longitudinal brush on the upper lugs, transitioning into, well, it's not quite a Jubilee, it's not quite a Beads of Rice, it's a Beads of Jubilee therefore bracelet. Nicely finished though. Again, brushed on the outer links and high polish finish on those 3 inner links. Pin and collar system. So you're splitting the difference between push pins and screw links with this one. Not as easy to adjust as either of those though. I didn't have any difficulties, but I've seen a few mutterings about the pin and collar system on Instagram. People generally don't go for them. In spite of their prevalence, Seiko amongst many other brands use them. My recommendation, have a bit of patience and get yourself one of these $2 or $3 tools on eBay. I go through them fairly regularly. You can get a slightly more complex one that raises and lowers this platform. I adjust several bracelets a week and this is my tool of choice. Back to the bezel then, relief style today, raised high polish Arabics in 1 to 11. We've got a raised triangle there at 12 with a loom pip. Everywhere else it's a kind of sandblasted finish. Now I specifically requested the grey dial version. They do a black, they do a green, a blue and a brown. Not often you can say that. I almost went for the brown, but I thought the grey really suited that stainless steel look from the bezel here and all of the shiny surfaces elsewhere. Bezel action is great, 120 click, unidirectional, no back plate, no bounce, everything lines up well. But let's get some zoom and some macro going for a look at what I think is a really rather striking dial on this one. Unusual selection of indexes here. 2 large hexagonal indexes at the 3 and the 9, kind of splitting the dial laterally. There's 1 large arrowhead pointing down from the 12 and smaller arrowheads pointing in towards the pinion from all of the other hour markers. Date frame, thankfully, at the 6 o'clock today with a large high polish surround. All of those indexes, as you can see, are silver high polish surrounds. Good choice moving the date down to 6. I think it would have ruined this dial completely if they tried to squeeze it in there at 3. It just wouldn't have worked. Handset, sword hour and sword minute, again complementing the indexes. They've gone for a lollipop second hand. Maybe that would have worked as a snowflake, maybe that would just have been one angle too many. Whatever, they're all well loomed. I'll put the loom video in now. BGW9, 15 layers of it apparently on the indexes and on the hands. There's also a loomed minute track around the outer edges, which is not a first for Phoibos. They did that with the Proteus, but I think it's a nice touch. If I crank the speed up, you can see the minute track is the first thing to go, followed by the indexes, but the hands are doing a good job of hanging on in there, which is just as well. Phoibos Octopus logo makes its second appearance under that big index at 12, and the only splash of colour on the watch, the word automatic printed above the date frame at 6 and 300 metres. So you've had a good 5 minutes to think about it. Can you remember the other watch or series of watches that I have reviewed on the channel that had this? Now I described it as organic and I thought it was very much like feathers, the same pattern on this dial. I certainly haven't seen anything else doing this recently, but maybe this is a coming trend, and if it is a trend, I quite like it, I have to say. Any guesses? No, sorry, that's wrong. No, that's also wrong. What? Was that Stratton? Yes, you got it right. Stratton. I looked at the Stratton Tourer range late last year and they all featured these kind of organic feathery dials. They suited the Stratton, but I think they suit the Phoibos better if I'm being honest. I'll pop a link to show you the case back and to show you the King Octopus making its third, but not its final, appearance on the watch there. Very nice indeed, kind of deep embossed. Usual spec sheet around there, sapphire crystal automatic and advertising its 300 metres of water resistance. As discussed at the very beginning in the intro, surprise surprise, it's a Seiko NH35 in there. No great surprises there on the Weishi 1000. This is pretty much par for the course from an NH35. For some reason, the majority that I've had over the years come in around the plus 10 seconds per day. Reasonable amplitude, beat error is nothing untoward. 21,600 vibrations per hour. It is a 24 joule hacking and hand winding 3 Hz auto. Found in just about every microbrand watch in the known universe and beyond. So how does it wear? Well, it wears quite nicely on me, thank you very much. 40mm in diameter, 46mm lug to lug, but it puffs out slightly because of those protruding mid links of the end link. But look at that, nice bit of curvature to the case. It curves and conforms to the wrist nicely. 170 grams though, definitely chunky for a 40. There we go, there's the King Octopus making its fourth and final appearance today. Etched into the clasp in a nice little detail. Clasp is a good one. Chamfered edges, 2 pushers and 3 levels of micro adjust. With a watch this chunky, I reckon you got to get a good fit, and the links are just sized correctly to complement the number of micro adjust holes that are available. Overhead legibility doesn't look too bad in here, but there is a lot going on today. Strong sunburst, loads of shiny surfaces to catch and play with the light, and that is especially noticeable when you get this watch outside. Outside they could definitely have put a couple more layers of anti-reflective coating on the sapphire crystal. That would not have hurt at all, but you can see when I move the watch around just what this watch looks like. All of those indexes, the hands, just catch the light at the same time. The relief bezel, the numerals there and so on, really kind of complementing the whole thing. Like I said, it is definitely an eye catcher today, so you've got to be okay with that if you're keen on one of these. On wrist, it's a little bit loose there for me. Like I said, I could take another link out of this one, no problems at all. Maybe capacity for just over an 8-inch wrist therefore with the standard bracelet. Guys with wrists larger than that maybe aren't going to be inclined to wear 40s anyway. Moans and niggles, well, shiny is not going to be to everyone's tastes, I appreciate. So if you like your watches a little bit less attention grabbing, then maybe this Voyager is not for you. It really is one of the more interesting looking, but also one of the more attention grabbing watches that I have reviewed at this price point, at this size. Now the case, it's a bit basic, it's a bit slab-sided. The whole thing's a bit chunky, like I said. Yeah, no problem with that, that's a stylistic choice. That kind of reminds me of the Orient Kamasu. It's a kind of uninspiring, slab-sided with the polish there. They could have maybe done something more interesting, chamfered edge, or maybe undercut it a bit to make it look a bit more elegant when it's on wrist. Now, I've already mentioned the pin and collar system. I had no issues with it personally, but just do bear that in mind if you are going to buy this one and size it yourself at home. I will make mention of the clasp though. Clasp is fine, like I said, it kind of suits the watch. You depress it, and you get a click, but I found that that doesn't secure it. You have to give it, there we are. Do you hear that second little click there? It just needs an extra little click. My Oleg and Vice P101 is the same. It's a bit of a false click, then you've got to give it a bit of a squeeze on the wrist to make sure it's secure. I don't know whether that's on them all, but it's certainly on this one, so certainly something worth pointing out. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with the Phoibos Voyager. I like it more than I thought I would when I saw the renders and a couple of photos prior to receiving the watch. So really, it is up to you. Do you like this one? Are you impressed with all of that attention-grabbing detail on the dial, or is it a bit too glitzy and a bit too glamorous for you? I look forward to reading the comments today. So there you have it, the Phoibos Voyager. If you like your 40mm dive watches, chunky but really glamorous, then this could be the perfect watch for you. I think 250 USD is bang on the money for this one as well. Micro brands tend to do really well in that 200 to 300 category. When it's stacked up against some of the big brands, you tend to get more for less with a micro. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. No more Star Trek references, I promise. It'll be Star Wars.